Hey folks, pardon me, we're live and it's lunch with Mal and I need a drink of water all of a sudden. All right, there we go. I'm ready to rock. Hope you guys have had an excellent fall week. It is 100% fall here in Saskatchewan, where we live in Canada now. So this was Thanksgiving week. Canadian Thanksgiving is on the second Monday of the year. And for those of you who are curious, it is the OG North American Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, I mean, it's a fall harvest celebration. It's something that's been around all across the globe forever, but it's important to know as a Canadian that this is the OG. I just like to say that. Anyway, I've always maintained, like I lived in the States for 25 years, and I've maintained the entire time that end of November is a dumb time to have a fall harvest celebration. If for no other reason, it's just too close to Christmas, right? And then you're like, well, now I only have like I have like these two big family gathering celebrations like a month apart, and not enough time, but not even a month apart. A lot of times they're 3 weeks apart, and you're like, I don't have time between these two events to recover and prepare and all that jazz. So um, I'm of the opinion that October is a superior time for Thanksgiving, and America should take my advice and change when they do it. So, with that super important information aside, I want to share with you some new things. Some of them are not so new, but they're sticking around for sure. Sometimes I don't talk about the newest things that Facebook's doing because they disappear after a few weeks or they get radically changed. And pardon me, I want my information to be as perennial as possible. So I I want to make sure I don't sort of spend too much time talking too much about ephemeral things. Like I'll mention them and say like look out for changes, but we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive today on some of the shenanigans that Facebook's playing with AI and what you need to know to better navigate um, what's going on with Facebook, how they're changing the creative setup of ads, and how that's becoming more and more important and crucial for us to understand how it's working. So without further ado, we're going to dive right into some live explanations of things. So this is, let me just got to organize my windows here for just a second so I can see the chat and see what's going on. By the way, welcome to everybody who's watching. It took a little bit for the stream to get picked up this time by different people, but we got folks on Facebook and YouTube now. So hey, how's it going? So I used to always recommend using what's known as standard or sorry, dynamic creative. And dynamic creative is something you set um, on the add set tab or yeah, tab or pick section of the setup. And what it does is it makes it so you can basically use multiple images and multiple pieces of text within one ad. So rather than having to go make multiple ads for every possible text iteration of whatnot you want to try, you did it all one ad, and then Facebook would sort of pick the winner or pick a few winners that were most consistently performing well. They kicked this off in 2019. It was awful. And then over 2020, it improved quite a bit and became sort of the de facto standard that everybody kind of ran with until late 2023, when they started talking about how they're getting rid of dynamic creative, and part of that was because much of what dynamic creative did ended up being folded into what I call standard creative. So it's just I call basically if you turn off dynamic creative, I call that standard creative. Um, and if I have the right window open here, this is the wrong one. Let me find the correct one I want to show. Yes, here we are. So when you're doing dynamic creative, and for many people, this is sort of what we've been used to for a very long time. You've got like some of your initial settings on the ad creative. You've got your image. If you're doing standard creative, you'd only get one image upload option. If you're doing dynamic creative, you get like up to 10, and you can mix and match video and slideshow. You have this option of optimize creative for each person, which should always be on. I didn't sometimes Facebook turns that off, especially when you're duplicating ads. They'll turn it off quite often when you're doing duplications. And you really want optimized creative for each person to be turned on um, in every creative type because it will pick the text or headline or whatever that's best to show different people. Um, and you get multiple primary text options. I got a first chapter in here. You can have multiple headlines, and you have these little buttons to add additional headlines, and you can put in a new headline. And that used to only be in dynamic creative, but it has since worked its way back into the standard creative thing. And pretty much every single thing that dynamic creative had, accepting multiple images, worked its way back into standard creative. But actually, some people even have multiple images in standard creative now too. So it's called flexible images. So basically they're combining so that they don't have this toggle back on the ad set section that affects the layout of the ad section. And that actually makes sense. You don't really want that. It's confusing to have that. And then you have your website URL will be down below, and then that would basically be all that you would end up putting into an ad. Segue, there's this new message here. People will be sent to the Amazon app if they install it. You'll likely see more conversions when people are sent to the Amazon app. If they don't have it installed, they'll send to the Amazon website instead. Um, don't know for sure what this actually means for us. There was a time where in the Amazon app, you could no longer purchase things and you couldn't borrow KU books and all that. Actually, I haven't confirmed if you can borrow KU books in it. Let me check that right now. But the Amazon app now, once again, supports purchases. Um, so that's pretty cool. They stopped doing it because Google Play and the Apple Store wanted to cut any purchases that happen inside the Amazon app, and Amazon said, "You're ridiculous." Um, let's see here. Can you borrow a KU book in here? Just going to quickly check. Destiny Lost. Put in the wrong. Put my name in wrong. Ooh, Destiny Lost. Oh, whoops. Oh, well, there's a limited time deal on one of my audiobooks. I love how Amazon does that. Amazon Tantor is who I use for my audiobooks. I love how they'll do like a deal, 99 cents for an audiobook bundle that I have, and they don't tell me about it. No, it really looks like ebooks are not available in the Amazon app. That's actually quite frustrating. Let me try different title here. Or new Canaan. Got paperbacks, audiobooks. Yeah, so ebooks are not available. So that's kind of frustrating. I'm going to dig into this more because that's something that just occurred to me as I was talking, that if people have the Amazon app installed and they read in Kindle Unlimited, and man, it almost feels like we do an education campaign for readers saying these books are in Kindle Unlimited. You're just being sent to the app and you have to go to the website. That sucks. It's like that. Anyway, that particular issue aside, go away message. You're making me upset. This is what people have been seeing for a long time in dynamic creative. Now, standard creative now has an entirely different layout where you have like your basic options where you're setting up your ad. You'll pick single image or video. Some people will have flexible as an option. And if you have flexible as an option, you can do multiple images. But there's no breakdown. So you can't see which image is performing better. They haven't put that part in yet, even though it's been a year and a half at this point. They haven't put the reporting in to tell you which image is working better. So I recommend just doing single image or video because otherwise you have no idea which option is doing better. And then you have your URL to the website where you're sending people. And we can scroll down. We just have this little box for ad creative, and then down to languages and tracking and all that sort of thing. And it's a very different experience from what we've been used to. And to actually put in your images and your text, you have to choose set up ad creative, and then choose if it's an image ad or a video ad. And the first thing that you are given is all these different options for branding and site links, and website highlights and product links. If you've ever linked a catalog like a Shopify store or something like that to Amazon to Facebook, and you have to actually turn this stuff off because we're sending people to um, a retailer, right? So we don't want um, Amazon branding to be included, and luckily this is off. And there's actually like um, you can you can choose to turn this off. It's picking up some branding from our Writing Wise website. I'm not entirely sure why it's doing that. And then site links, it's what it's doing is it's going to like either the main domain associated with your account, or which could be like might be your author account, or Amazon. It's actually going to pull like relevant links from Amazon and show them onto your ad. So it could be like Prime deals or something like that. So you actually be paying money to send people to not your book on Amazon. So always make sure that you turn off site links. Um, so that luckily it's this one's kind of weird. Usually there's you can just delete them and then it shows us off. But I turned off this check mark for identify and add relevant site links while your ad's running. It says it couldn't find any. Hopefully that means it stays off. Website highlights is a similar thing. Like if you have like an about us section or support or other products on your website, it would show that. And then lastly, we have products. And if you've ever linked a Shopify catalog, it will show those products underneath your ad. The problem is like, I don't know, like maybe you have a Shopify store where you sell bath soaps or something like that, completely unrelated, or your partner has a business and you run your ads are all sort of under one meta account, and it's going to show like I don't know, like model train stuff or something like that, because it just sort of picks whatever catalog you have. For me, it's picking Tiffany Patterson, who's an author I work with, and it's going to show her catalog with my book. So I have to go in and then hit this little arrow and choose not connected, and then products are off. Now, interestingly, these can turn back on again. I actually have to keep a really close eye on ads I'm running to make sure that Facebook has not turned product catalog stuff back on again. So I'll click next. Now I'll be able to pick my images that I might want to use for my ad. Got a bunch of Jill's images in here, which are kind of awesome. I'm just going to pick this one to start with, and then hit. Actually, no, this is a character image ad. So we'll choose I'll choose one of these. And then this is something that we've kind of become accustomed to if you're running standard creative. It's going to ask you for different sizes of ads to show in different places, like in stories, or this one here on the smaller narrow one would be on the Facebook right side one. Although that one actually on a lot of displays now actually shows a square image, so I leave it as square. But you could actually make like a 9:16 version of your image for stories placements and stuff like that, and then hit replace and put up a special one. I oftentimes don't do that because I actually just don't really care about my ad showing in those placements. So I just hit next. And then now this is where you'll add all your text and everything rather than sort of just doing it in line here. The tricky thing is after you've made it, you get to do it in line anyway. So if I just sort of just put like whatever in each of these things, then later on I can change it the way we've always changed it. I personally hate this. Back when Facebook started doing ads, they had a entirely different flow for creating ads versus editing ads, and they realized that was dumb because it is, and they unified it so that the flow for making an ad and the flow for editing an ad were identical. And now they've broken away from that again. It drives me bonkers. As an interesting side note, learn more is sort of proven to be like the worst call to action button to use. I've used Shop Now for a while, but I don't really want to make this about the transaction. So I make it download, just like get the book. They're going to push their AI images on you, and they're awful. Like Colony World Awaits, explore the old world with us, free sci-fi novel. It's not free, and like I've actually never seen it be this bad. This is like the worst I've ever seen. Anyway, skip and continue. We don't need any of that nonsense. And now we're actually at the part that I really want to dig into is these Advantage Plus creative enhancements. So this first one, or you can see here, even though I've turned off Tiffany Patterson's catalog, it's still super eager to show her product catalog down here. And And if I were to turn on show products, even though back in creative setup back here, I had disconnected her catalog, if I turn on this show products toggle, and sometimes these things are turned on by default, it will show those products. So be sure that's turned on. Also, there are as many as I think 10 or 11 different enhancements. Different ones appear at different times. No idea what logic they use for that. It's I can build an ad and then duplicate all settings identical, and different creative enhancements show up in here. It's a total mishmash. So translate text, you definitely want that to be off. It's not going to do you any good. So there's always like a couple that are off, and they're like, hey, do you want to turn these on? And then there's a whole bunch that are on by default. Um, First one is add overlays. What that will do is it will take your headlines and it will actually put them as text above the image. You can see that my delicious headline of SDF is up here. I actually think this one's not too bad because it can make your image taller for some placements that prefer a taller image, like Facebook, like Instagram feeds and stuff like that. Visual touch-up, this one's pretty neat how the visual touch-ups are nothing. Okay, so this time it's zoomed in and we can see like it actually kind of looks bad because it's cutting off the book and stuff like that. I always turn off visual touch-ups because like you don't know what they're doing. You can turn on music, but like you don't know what music you're gonna get. In this particular case, it's a folk song of some sort. I've seen so many horror stories about the complete wrong music being added. The other one is text improvements. So what they're going to be doing here, they're again, it's not giving the examples, but they're actually changing your headlines and changing the text. So this is letting Facebook turn on its own AI text. Now, you'll know that if we actually had some text it could work with here, it would have given us some AI options to work with. This basically turns on AI text options, even if you didn't select any. So do be turning that off. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with like using AI to maybe help give you some good ideas for text options, but you want to review them, right? With that toggle on, you get no review. Animation, it's pretty hit or miss, and it can look pretty awful sometimes. I always turn that off. And then they also have this enhanced CTA thing, where they will like sort of add something in after your image, and you can actually customize what these CTAs are. They can be interesting, but and they only show on Instagram stories. The Instagram stories don't use emojis. That's right. They do use them everywhere now. My personal feeling is like if you're really trying to like figure out what's working and what's not working and be in control of like, what parameters you're putting into an ad, they're making that work, then I kind of feel like you don't want this on because this is adding an unknown number of variables into your ad. So I would turn that one off as well. Really, the only one I recommend using is advanced overlays. Now there are others. Like I said, there's as many as 11. I'm only being shown 8. There actually are no others I would recommend leaving on, to be honest. I would only ever turn on ad overlays. So that's one of the things you really got to watch for. Now, I'm going to say I'm done with this. And now we finally get sort of our more standard flow. We now can like add in our text. We can add in our headlines and customize those. Optimize text per person. Remember how I had to turn that on the other ad with like a little toggle? Well, that is for most people on and not something you can turn off anymore. Some people will hover over this and you'll get a little edit link and you can turn it off. What optimized text per person means is that it'll mix and match your primary text, headline, and descriptions. So your description can appear above the image. So if you're using your description to load in a bunch of tropes and stuff like that for the AIs to read, make sure you make it human readable, because if optimized text per person is on and cannot be turned off, that text might appear above the image. You're welcome, Don. Nice to see you. So do be wary of that. A lot of times the call to action gets lost during this process and it won't be set properly. So do double check that and make sure that it is set properly. And then also you can see in here that which creative enhancements have been turned on, and everything's turned off except for ad overlays. And if you want to like go and tweak those, you can hit this edit button to turn them back on. Something you want to check once you're done doing your ad setup is make sure that site links, product links, and website highlights and all this stuff are off. Sometimes after doing this process, some of them will be back on. And actually you might come back to this ad days later and find that some of them are on. So you do want to sort of keep an eye on these things and make sure they're all turned off, because like you don't have control over what other information it might be putting into your ad. Like we don't. If I was running ads to my own website and I wanted, and actually I had another promo going or something like that, and I altered my meta tags on my website, my metadata to talk about that promo, and Facebook picked it up and added information about that promo to my ad, that might be great. The problem is we're sending people to Amazon, and it'll be Amazon's promos for Amazon things that will end up showing up. We'll be paying money to send people to Amazon. The other thing you need to watch out for is there's two things that can happen in here. One, it might just push its AI creative. You want to make sure you don't accidentally turn that on. But sometimes it will actually put in images. It'll say like, here's images from other ads that have done well in the past. You might want to try adding to this. Or it will do that and turn them on automatically. So just make sure that it doesn't show that anything is selected in here. It'll have different wording. It'll actually say like, these additional images are currently being used. Make sure that there's nothing in there that you don't want to have be used, because they will just show up in here and be kind of awful. I am curious about that not optimized message. That's a new one, and I haven't seen that. Not optimized. Oh, it's saying it's not optimized because I'm only using one option. So if I put in more than one text option, it should go away. I always put in multiple text options, so that's why I've not seen it before. I'll just grab a headline. Add that. Let's see if the not optimized message goes away. No, it's still partially optimized. Does it want me to have more? Oh, it wants me to have more. So I don't have creative fatigue. So that's why that's showing up. Eric says I've pretty much stopped using Facebook ads because of a lot of these changes. Yeah, they've changed too much too fast, and I think for a lot of people it's been too much to keep up with. And also, in all honesty, a lot of these changes sucked when they started doing them. They did not work. They broke a lot of stuff this summer, and I'm only just in the last 3 to 5 weeks, depending on the account, what kind of things people are advertising. I've only just started seeing things get better again, and not great, just better. So yeah, it's actually a pain in the ass to run Facebook ads right now. Something that did occur to me today. So one of the reasons why I switched over to using standard creative was because breakdowns are broken a lot. We'll see if they work right now. So let me go to an actual ad that's running here, and we'll try doing image breakdowns. Will I see both images? Okay. So in this case, it doesn't show me the thumbnails, but I can actually get a breakdown on both images. A lot of times that's broken and you can't get a breakdown on both images. This ad's been running forever, by the way. Turn it off. It's 32 cents per click now. It's long in the tooth. Anyway, I was just thinking to myself as I was preparing for this, what if I did dynamic creative and then just didn't do multiple images? So I wouldn't have to worry about the breakdown issue, and I wouldn't have to worry about all this other garbage being turned on me all the time. And I think I'm actually probably going to do that. But I also think at the same time that at least I need to stay on top of what shenanigans they're pulling in here, because at some point, with the creative setup and with all of the advantage AI enhancement things that you can get, like all this nonsense, because at some point I fear that they are going to just make this the default where you have to go through this flow and deal with this stuff. So I'm going to stay on the front lines dealing with that stuff, at least with some accounts. But I might actually switch over to using dynamic creative and just putting one image in, just so I can build ads where I don't have to worry that it's putting in the wrong product catalog or adding in links about Prime deals or who knows what. So yeah, it's pretty rough. Having random bits of music on older ads just show up and not matching the tone of my stuff was really annoying. Yeah, I agree completely. And that's why you want to turn that off. And you have to keep an eye on it, because it's happened, and like if it happens every now and then, like maybe I forgot I didn't hit the toggle, but I see these things sort of magically turn on enough that either completely lost my mind, or it's actually happening without any control over it. So I think actually, so a great option though, like I said, is when you make your Facebook ads, even if you don't want to use any of the features of dynamic creative, turn on dynamic creative, and that will reduce the number of features. The one thing I'm not 100% certain about is if you turn, and this is something you might have to test. I have to test this too. Is if you turn on dynamic creative, does Facebook just do it anyway and then just not give you a toggle to turn it off? So not necessarily a panacea, but it's an option to try. And I'm going to be doing a bunch of it right now in the next little while, and I'll report in if it is safe or if the Facebook is committing shenanigan atrocities when we turn on dynamic creative. AI is actively making the internet worse, convoluting our UIs and making us do a million different click paths to get what you want. I do not disagree with you at all. I was actually reading some posts from someone just today where they've been doing UI and doing user testing to hone their understanding of UI and seeing where humans actually get frustrated with things, and so that's their job, is to really optimize flows. And they were working with the client, and the client's, we said, well, we asked ChatGPT and they said to do it a different way. And the client's like, yes. And interestingly, ChatGPT, what you're pulling from ChatGPT is out of one of my blog posts where I talk about that being the most efficient way to program, but not the most efficient way for the users. It was quite interesting to see that particular example, but I totally agree. Even just like where we are on this side, trying to make our ads, trying to create content, the AI is actually making it more complicated, not because of anything because of things the AI are doing, but also because of all the toggles to turn on the AI stuff that we don't want to have be on. Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty frustrating the way that's going right now. But if you are running Facebook ads and you haven't given up yet, do just be very, like I said, be aware of all the different things that can be turned on. Make sure these creative setup options are off. They can turn back on their own. They also can turn back on when you duplicate ads, so be careful of that. Make sure that it's not pulling in images from other ads, because it will do that, and they could be for the wrong book or whatever. And then make sure that the AI art, because these things are wrong. These are all wrong. These are not what the book is about, and it's frankly kind of awful. And some of the ones it showed before, the text was gobbledygook. It wasn't even correct text. And then of course you've got the advanced creative enhancements, which are all the translations and touch ups and music and all that stuff. You got to make sure those are off. Ad overlays is the only safe one to do, as far as I'm concerned. So some thoughts, some things for you to look at there. Also, along the same lines, similar things are happening in AMS ads. Two things you got to watch out for, and AMS is turning these on without asking you, and even sometimes turning them on after you've turned them off. The first one is further increased bids across placements on Amazon Business. So Amazon Business is a separate Amazon website from regular Amazon. I think it's just business.amazon.com. It's kind of sort of wholesale pricing for businesses. Some of the stuff is actually the exact same price, so it's not entirely wholesale, but it is like a business website for businesses to buy products via Amazon and yada yada. And they say wholesale office supplies and B2B solutions. So that's theoretically what it is. It's a wholesale site. So what they're saying here is if this is turned on, Amazon will increase your bid amounts more for your products being shown on Amazon Business. So you've already set bid increases here. It will increase your bids on top of these bids already. I don't know that ebooks show up actually on here. I don't have an Amazon Business Canada account, so I'm not sure. It's redirecting me to Canada. So I can't answer that question right now, but I don't think ebooks show up. But if you have your print books, those will show up because you could bulk order your print books. So this particular toggle is probably not a huge issue for most of us because and then I'll figure out if I can double check this by accessing the US website, which I actually do have a Amazon business account on later. But I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But I think obviously you should just leave it off because it's not like a scenario that we'd ever want to have. The other one is increase reach or limit off Amazon spend. So Amazon has now does this thing where AMS ads will show in places other than Amazon. It's the exact same thing as on Facebook. If we go all the way down and we look at the placements for an ad, there's this section down here called apps and sites. They call it audience network. That is also ads in places other than Facebook. So it's the same thing as apps and sites on Facebook. Apps and sites does not convert. I've been able to track that forever. It's a waste of money, and it is a waste of money here as well. The pesky thing is you can't turn it off. You can say turn it on more or leave it at regular. It kind of sucks that they say that. Make sure you set this to limit off Amazon spend, because otherwise it's going to just advertise your shit off Amazon. And it's just like, maybe if you were selling, I don't know, leggings or something like that, maybe it would work. But for books, our products are too inexpensive, especially with KU and stuff like that. It doesn't convert. And it also means it's going to show your stuff in just like wonky, weird places. So always set that to limit. I know this particular author is fanatical about changing this thing to limit off Amazon spend, and it was set to increase reach on this account. So I know AMS is turning this on because she's hardcore about it. Although she did just finish a book, so maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was mentally dealing with that at the time. But anyway, always make sure you turn those placements off. And it's the same. And one of the reasons why I feel that way about offsite ads is the same reason why I never turn on the Facebook Marketplace placement on Facebook ads, because you're browsing, like I'm sitting there browsing cars or computer parts or something like that, and most of my ads on Facebook are for clothing or they're for household supplies generally, based because we just moved and we're buying a lot of household supplies, and I'll be browsing for something that's salient to me at the moment, and I'll get ads on Marketplace for these completely unrelated things, and it's just like, this is terrible. This is a waste of my what I'm trying to do right now. I don't like this experience, Facebook, and I know that's how it works for other people too, because they never convert. You can't tell this when you're running traffic ads, but when you run sales or leads ads, you can actually measure off the conversion. Did people buy the thing? Did they download the reader magnet? And you'll see that Marketplace never converts. So I turn it off for the exact same reasons, and that's the reason why off Amazon ads don't work, and that's why Audience Network on Facebook ads don't. It's just bogus. So that's kind of some of the shenanigans that are going on right now, and that's how we have to deal with them. If you haven't gone the route of Eric and pretty much stopped using the ads. This thing switched my even just switched my page. Also, just because I want to kvetch for a moment here, I'm in a kvetching mood. So if you're in science fiction, like as we all know, back in the end of June, Facebook removed a ton of targets, and they're like, starting January 16th, it will stop delivering unless you update the targets. But what we all know is that starting June 30th, I think, is when this change rolled out. Anything that was like listed as going away really just completely stopped working. And it was most of the author targets across all genres. And if you have this little exclamation point, that means that target is no longer working and you need to remove it. What drives me nuts? So if I hit update all, for some genres, they've actually made some new categories. And if you had like certain authors, it would like give you this new category option that you could use instead, which is kind of nice. If I hit update all, it just removes space opera. Why do we have military science fiction, which is a more niche than space opera, as an option? Space opera is huge. Star Trek and Star Wars are both space opera. Why is space opera gone? Why is there no general science fiction category? It drives me nuts. I've got science fiction movies and science fiction as a field of study, with 4,000 people being targetable in there. But science fiction as a whole is not here. And science fiction movies is kind of rough because the Avengers is a science fiction movie, right? It's it makes me sad. So that's where I'm at with that. Eric says, I've never had luck with Amazon ads, but maybe I'll try with Cthulhu Guild Grimoire. Yeah, it's if you do Amazon ads do automatic. Automatic is really just the only way to go. And one of the things about Amazon ads is so Amazon is a racket in this regard because they make money on off you running the ad and they take a cut of the sale. They make money on both sides of the transaction, which should be illegal. Um, it actually is. Like, I'm sure they somehow skirt the very edge of the law, or they just grease the right pockets so that no one ever comes after them. But it's like, come on, really? Like you can 100% price fix. And so what they do, and this goes, I'm sure this goes against actually a lot of the truth in advertising laws have all been removed. So I don't know. They might just they don't even might not even need to hide anything. But obviously, since they want to make money on both sides of the transaction, they're going to show ads more if they're for books that convert better because they why would they want to just take this money and not this money on the sale? They want the money for the ad and the money for the sale. That's why a lot of times you can't get your AMS ads to show because your books aren't selling well enough right now to begin with. Facebook ads are one of the ways you can jumpstart AMS ads. Get well performing Facebook ads, it can make Amazon happy with you. Amazon ads will perform better. um, Likewise, bad performing Facebook ads can kill your AMS ads because it can make the purchase ratio of people who land on your product page and then don't purchase, it can make that go down. So, so a lot of times AMS ads won't work because the book just isn't already selling well enough because they care about that sales history. So using something like a BookBub or really good swaps while your book's on sale or something like that can be a great way to build sales history for your book, and then AMS will show your ad more. So that could be something you could play around with as well. Um, but yeah, mess. It's I I think it was 2018. Second 20 books to 50K in Vegas, where on stage I said Amazon's a racket now with AMS ads because they realized they want your money. In fact, it actually changed overnight because there was an earnings call with Amazon, and they said that right now we only make X amount of money off of advertising on Amazon, and we want to increase that by it was like 20 times or something like that. And boom, the platform changed overnight so that pay to play became the way that Amazon worked, and it's been like that ever since. But um, I'm trying to make this the good news podcast, but sometimes it just can't be. I do think the good news is that it is still possible to run profitable ads. I run profitable ads for a lot of people. And I've worked with people who were like, I thought my ads weren't profitable, and I turned them off. And dear Lord, they were profitable because the thing that happened afterwards was bad. So it is possible to run profitable ads, but it's harder and it takes more work and more upkeep and paying more attention to the little shenanigans that both AMS and Facebook are playing. So I'm sorry to have to share that part of the news, but I do want you to be aware that it is possible to run profitable ads. I would say probably that if you're in a genre where it's been very hard for you to find good targets and find readers in the past, in those scenarios, it may actually be impossible now to have ads that work well. Um, or at least any ads that work well for long. You might have ads that can be profitable for a little while, but then once you've sort of exhausted the low hanging fruit, they might not be anymore. So I try to be real. I don't want to be blowing smoke up anyone's butt, but that's how things be right now. So I got a jet. I got some calls coming this afternoon with people to help them with their ads, and I'll be back next week. I don't think I have anything going on. We're kind of settled in now that we no longer have contractors doing things in our house. This is the first weekday in 5 weeks that there were no other people in our house, and it's quite nice. And we have a fully functioning bathroom. We actually took a shower in our house. For me, the second time after living here for 5 weeks. We've been to our parents' house at the gym and stuff like that in the meantime. So that's been super nice too. So I'm going to be doing some basking in just that general vibe. Um, but I hope you guys have a fabulous day. And your upcoming weekend is equally fabulous. see you all next week. Have a good one.